Speaking of rooms that are not incredibly deep on this team this year, let's talk a little bit about the defensive end, what lies behind Weathersby and Norman at this point, because I feel like we are just staring into a little bit of an abyss here just in terms of talent. I think that there is talent. Let's not get it twisted, but there's a lot of unknowns there. Even with Chaz Coleman, if he was going to play on this team, he was still all potential. That's why he got that rating in the portal that he did. But with all that in mind, one, what is behind them that you think can play, meaningful rotational snaps this season for Tennessee? And two, because I've seen this show up in our comments as well, is there something wrong with Christian Gass?
Yeah, it's a spot that I think you're right where it's talented. It's just really young. It's a very inexperienced group. It's true freshmen. It's redshirt freshmen that you're going to be relying on to take steps here. So it's at defensive end, Tyree Weathersby is going to be your starter who, he's a redshirt junior, but he hasn't played much. Last year is his first year kind of being in the mix, and a lot of that's been due to injury, and then depth above him as well. But it's not like he's coming back after a breakout season. You're also kind of hoping he can take a step going into his fourth college season. Then Marion Dye, who I think put together a nice freshman year, who they really like. And then behind that, it's probably going to be a true freshman, and Carter Gooden. You have a handful of true freshmen at both of those edge rusher spots that you're going to be looking at to produce. My best bet right now would be Carter Gooden, but it could be a couple other guys. Then at Leo, as you said, I think Jordan Norman was your starter at Leo, even if Chaz Coleman was there, because Chaz Coleman is kind of in that group of inexperienced guys. It wasn't like he was, just ravaging Big Ten backfields last year for Penn State. He was a guy that when he got his chances looked good, but the chances weren't always there. So Jordan Norman's going to be the top guy. They need Christian Gass, though, behind Jordan Norman. Otherwise, it is going to be another group of true freshmen. Christian Gass is essentially a true freshman since he didn't play much last year and he battled so much injury. But he put on a lot of weight this offseason to try to, I think, get ready to play more snaps and be more durable. So I think he's going to be someone that's going to be in the mix a lot at Leo. Hezekiah Harris, a true freshman, is a name that keeps coming up there. So I think he's someone they like to play early. But again, there's just going to be a handful of true freshmen at both of those edge rusher spots, and they're just kind of hoping one or two guys stick so they can kind of get through this season. But then also, I think you look at how deep that linebacker room is. I'm curious to see if we start to see more 3-3 looks instead of the 4-2, because it just seems like an easy solution of you're really weak at edge rusher, you're really deep at linebacker. Maybe you can reshuffle the deck and get a little bit more away from the base defenses we saw, not just under Tim Banks, but what Jim Knowles has done his career as well, and try to get more linebackers on the field.
Well, speaking of linebackers, I know his name's been in the news quite a bit recently, but Arion Carter, there's been talks about him potentially lining up on the edge from time to time. Do you think that's going to be a frequent thing that we see from this season, or you think it's going to be more of a situational type ordeal?
I'm curious. I am, because it just feels like the best solution is to get an Arion Carter, to get Jaden Perlotti, who's just a freak athlete and who was playing with his hair on fire last year, but had some of those freshmen maybe mental mistakes or not being fully comfortable because you're a true freshman. It feels like sticking him and just saying, hey, get after the quarterback, contain here on the edge. That feels like a good way to use a guy like that who otherwise maybe wouldn't have played as much, because you have Arion Carter, you have Amari Campbell, you have Edwin Spillman, you have Jeremiah Thielander coming back, and the two true freshmen and Braden Rouse and TJ White and Jordan Burns is coming back and Jaden Harmon. So it's just such a deep room that to get these guys the amount of snaps that they deserve because of how good they are and the potential that they can reach, it would make a lot of sense to stick a guy like Arion or stick a guy like Jaden Perlotti or one of these other guys. It doesn't even have to be a true, like, hey, you're playing Leo this snap. It could just be you're in a regular 3-3 and you're blitzing different guys. Edwin Spillman's a great pass rusher when he's called upon to do that. So maybe he gets asked to do that a little bit more from those formations as well. I definitely think that's something that maybe we won't see as much against Furman in that opening game, because you want to keep things very vanilla. But in that Georgia Tech game on the road, I'm curious how much they go to those looks.
While we're on the subject of Arion Carter, let's just get it out of the way now. One, is Tennessee going to fight this? Because it's incredibly stupid. And two, if they don't fight it, who moves into that second starting linebacker spot?
Yeah, I think this kind of, the fight was to get it down to two. So I think this is just kind of what it is. As far as I know, it seems like that's just kind of the pill they have to swallow is you're not going to have Aaron Carter in that Georgia Tech game. Now, if there's a position you're not going to have a guy, it's linebacker. So I guess you have that going for you, but you would, of course, love him to be on the field. When he was healthy last year, he was really good for Tennessee. So it sucks that he's not there. It's really stupid that he's not there. Like, I think, again, this isn't even from a Tennessee perspective. You've heard people from other fan bases or other reporters covering other teams or national media just being like, this is ridiculous. What are we doing? So it's a stupid situation, but as far as who will fill in, I think Edwin Spillman might be the most talented linebacker in that entire room already over Arian Carter and Amari Campbell. So that would be the most natural fit to me, would probably put Edwin and Amari on the field at the same time. But if Perlotti can take a step like they want to, that's great. And T-Lander, of course, is an older guy who they're all new to Jim Knowles' system, but he's kind of a coach's son type of guy. So he should pick things up pretty quickly. So if you just want someone to kind of help Amari Campbell command things out there, he's an option too. But I would bet Edwin Spillman gets his starts in the first 2 games.
That makes sense. Jordan, do you have something?
No, you can go ahead.
Oh, well, that's all I had on linebacker. But shifting over to the secondary, one name that has kind of stood out this spring, and I don't think going into the offseason, many of us thought this would be the case, and that's Idris Farouk over there in that strong safety spot. There's been a lot of talk about him winning out that battle against all the competition that's come in from other places via the transfer portal. Is it still his spot at this point? Can we expect him to maintain it throughout fall ball?
I think there's a good chance, and I was really curious how things would shake out. I think on paper you looked at the secondary or the safety spots, and you saw TJ Metcalf coming from Michigan, you saw Lane come in from Penn State, and it was like, okay, those are the 2 guys that are going to step in and be your instant starters. But Anthony Poindexter and Jim Knowles seem to really like Idris Farouk and what he's brought to that team during the spring. So if he can continue to do that, I think there's a good chance that he could start probably over Lane. I think TJ's got a good chance to start on the other side, but it's a position too where you would love to have 3 guys you can trust there. And Tennessee hasn't always had 3 guys that they can trust at safety. They've had a lot of seasons where it's been the 2 guys back there and they're playing essentially the entire game. So if you're able to have Idris and Lane and Metcalf all going in one game, I think that's a huge win for Tennessee, and they would love that. I think all 3 guys would be very willing to do that. Of course, there's the accolade of started 10 out of 12 games and all that. But I don't think at the end of the day, as long as the snap counts feel justified, that'll really be too big of a deal. But then you have Dylan Lewis back there. You have Sidney Walton back there. I'm really curious what Joel Wyatt does back there. Just a guy that could be playing Leo, honestly, for Tennessee with his size, but he's back there at safety. That'll be really interesting too. So even past that top 3, they have young depth who have really high potentials. But those 3 have you pretty excited, I think.
Now, what's the word on the street with Quay Moss? Because I know Tennessee took him first in the transfer portal, which I feel like's got to mean something. And from everything that I could see from him, he seems to be quite the stud. I have high expectations for him. I was wondering what your opinions were on Quay Moss.
I think that was a fantastic pickup and one that goes a little under the radar and you kind of forget about it because, like you said, it was so early in the cycle. But I thought it was a really strong pickup, a guy that's played a lot of football. He should be the starter at that nickelback spot, the star spot for Tennessee. So he'll get a lot of snaps. It's another spot too where behind him maybe isn't the deepest. You can try to mix and match and slot guys in different places, but just from watching practices, there's a lot of Isaiah Hardage from Colorado. You saw some Jemian Theodore, the freshman, playing there. So maybe that's a spot too where if Quay needs a rest, you could go and put a 3rd linebacker there and go back to a 4-3, which we saw Tennessee do at times last year. So that's another thing to keep in mind too. But I think Quay Moss was a great pickup, and he should be part of that starting 5 defensive backs back there.
Yeah, that acquisition was very important, just the way things crumbled last season with a certain defensive back we don't talk about on this show. But I will be watching him on the first Friday of the college football season because he'll have a standalone Power 4 versus Power 4 game.
Get the scout in for Georgia Tech too.
Exactly. That is precisely why I'm going to be watching that game. A little scouting report and maybe a little hate watch as well. But and then also there was the Jordan Thomas medical retirement thing too. That was another part of the problem last season. So
yeah. Jordan Thomas seemed on track to be a really nice piece for Tennessee. And then obviously he had that horrific injury that held him out. But yeah, it was not exactly what anyone I think thought that nickelback spot was going to look like last year. But I think for Quay Moss too, he's played nickelback at his stop. Like he has experience in that exact position. He's not a cornerback that you're hoping slide. So he is set. He knows what to do in that spot, and I think he'll hit the ground running.
So Nickelback turned out to really be like Nickelback last season, is what you're telling me.
Hey, Nickelback's not too bad. I can rock with some of it.
I didn't think we'd get into Nickelback in 2 consecutive shows, Jordan, but here we are.
Hey, I guess we're becoming the Nickelback podcast at this point.
We're not fans of them, but we acknowledge them for what they are, which is almost so bad it's entertaining. But
eventually we'll be 45.
yeah, eventually we'll be 45 and have gone through a little bit more in life and really have it resonate with us.